Welcome to the Deep Dive, the place where we distill the overwhelming mountain of information into the essential, actionable insights you need to stay ahead.
Today we are focusing on, well, one of the most fundamental challenges facing anyone in content and marketing right now.
Absolutely. It's this critical evolution of how content is discovered online. We're moving beyond the comfortable, established rules of search engine optimization, SEO.
And we're plunging headfirst into the age of generative engine optimization, GEO.
That's right. And the source materials you've shared with us really paint a clear, and I have to say, a very stark view of the current digital battlefield.
They do. On one side, you have this exponentially growing flood of mass-produced, near-zero-cost AI content. And on the other side,
The desperate, non-negotiable requirement for human expertise, for verifiable originality.
exactly. So our mission for this deep dive is to give you the strategic framework, the roadmap, really, to win in this new dual search landscape.
And this isn't just about, updating a few keywords. This is about redesigning your entire content architecture from the ground up.
It is.
We're going to be analyzing Google's latest quality mandates. We'll define the new optimization acronyms, AEO, GEO, AIO, and crucially, we're giving you concrete, tactical 60 to 90-day experiments.
Experiments you can run right now to ensure your content is visible in those generative answers that people are increasingly, and I mean very increasingly, relying on.
And to really get why this strategy is so critical, we have to grasp the sheer scale of the problem first.
We do, and we're starting with a concept that, frankly, often gets called the dead internet theory.
Which sounds like digital paranoia, I have to admit.
It absolutely sounds like it, but the underlying data points to an undeniable economic reality. The internet is now structurally dominated by automated activity, not human activity.
Okay, let's unpack that. When people talk about the dead internet theory, or DIT, what are they actually saying?
They're asserting that since around 2016, maybe 2017, the web is primarily composed of bot activity, algorithmically generated content, and, outputs that are just recycled by large language models.
So it's not organic human interaction anymore.
Not primarily, no. And what really started as this fringe conspiracy idea on some forum has become, for many people, a truly prophetic observation.
Especially since the explosion of consumer-facing AI tools.
Exactly. The rapid rise of ChatGPT and Midjourney made it feel very, very real, very fast.
So the core concern isn't some sci-fi scenario where robots took over.
No. The concern is the inversion of the digital ecosystem. It's driven by a fundamental economic asymmetry. We're dealing with synthetic personas and bots talking to other bots, turning huge parts of the web into what some of the sources call a vast inhuman wasteland.
Can we anchor this, though? I mean, it's a big theory. Can we anchor it in some hard numbers? Is there data that actually confirms this inversion is happening?
Oh, yeah. The evidence is startlingly quantifiable. According to analysis from the source materials, in 2024, bot traffic reached 51% of global internet activity.
51%.
51%. That's a historic tipping point. For the first time ever, automated traffic officially surpassed human traffic online.
Wow. And how does that compare to, say, a few years ago?
It's a significant jump. It was up from 42.3% just 3 years earlier in 2021. So the acceleration is undeniable.
51%.
Right.
More than half the internet is automated. I mean, just think about your own social media feeds or your email inbox for a second.
Right.
That feeling you get that you're just drowning in noise and repetition and, just junk. That's not anecdotal. It's mathematically validated.
And that scale asymmetry is really the core challenge here. Human creation is linear, it's constrained. We need to sleep, we need to eat, we need to focus. Our production capacity is finite.
But AI agents don't have those constraints.
Not at all. They operate simultaneously, continuously, and their marginal cost per action is trending towards zero. They can flood the web at a pace that humanity simply cannot match.
So you get this economic imbalance where the cost of creating content has completely decoupled from its value or its scarcity.
Precisely. And that leads directly to the visible symptoms of this synthetic flood, which the sources term AI slop and ghost content.
Right. What does AI slop look like out there in the wild?
Well, AI slop is the low-effort, low-quality, bizarre manifestation of this zero-cost production. And one of the most telling examples cited in the material is the phenomenon of the shrimp Jesus images.
I'm sorry, the what?
Shrimp Jesus. Bizarre AI-generated images that started popping up on platforms like Facebook in 2024. They'd often blend, religious figures with crustaceans or other random objects.
Okay.
And they went massively viral. But the really weird part was the comment sections. They were filled with thousands and thousands of accounts, all posting simple affirmatives like amen.
And those were bots.
Many were likely automated, yeah. Just dutifully engaging with a completely synthetic, completely bizarre visual. It's a symbol of the whole system.
That is a memorable, if profoundly unsettling, symbol. A digital system that is just completely decoupled from any real human input and is now just self-proliferating.
And ghost content is sort of the professional version of that slop.
Okay, so less shrimp, more corporate jargon.
Exactly. It's perfectly optimized, algorithmically focused text designed exclusively for a search engine to consume, not for a human to connect with.
So it ticks all the old SEO boxes.
It ticks every box, word count, keyword density, you name it. But it offers zero original insight. It's content designed to be found, not to be read.
Which turns, as one analysis called it, huge swaths of the web into mausoleums for unengaging text.
A perfect description.
So if the bots are talking to bots and the underlying data that new AIs are training on is purely synthetic, what happens next? There's a real risk here, isn't there?
A huge one. The risk is that the very basis for training the next generation of AI just collapses. This is a threat the sources refer to as model collapse.
Model collapse. Okay, break that down for us.
It's the critical long-term danger. Model collapse is what happens when AI models are increasingly trained on data produced by previous generations of AI, so synthetic content rather than original, diverse human input.
So the AI is eating its own tail.
That's a great way to put it. Think of it like making a photocopy of a photocopy over and over again. With each generation, the quality degrades, noise gets introduced, artifacts accumulate.
Until the output is just coherent nonsense that has lost its grasp on objective reality.
Precisely. The signal of truth collapses into a sort of digital whiteout.
And are there actual predictions for how bad this could get?
The predictions cited in the source materials are stark. I mean, some forecast that 99% of content could be AI generated by 2025 to 2030.
99%.
If that happens, high quality, diverse, human-created data becomes the rarest and therefore the most valuable resource on the web. It creates a massive bottleneck, not just for content creators like us, but for the continued healthy development of AI itself.
And the sources point out that the root of this problem really goes all the way back to the fundamental design of the internet itself.
It does. The original architecture, HTTP, TCP/IP, it was never built to handle this level of synthetic noise.
Yeah, what do you mean by that?
Well, those protocols were built for simple human-to-human information delivery. They prioritized speed and scale above all else. They were built to be stateless.
Wait, for someone who isn't a network engineer, what does a stateless mean in this context?
A simple analogy is having a new cashier for every single item you buy at the grocery store.
Okay.
Imagine you walk in, and for every product you place on the counter, a completely new person comes up to scan it. They know nothing about the items you just bought, your purchase history, or any previous requests you made.
I see. So every interaction is treated as a brand new, isolated event.
Exactly. The internet protocols are similar. They treat every request for information in isolation. And we gained incredible efficiency by adopting this stateless approach, but we sacrificed persistence and, crucially, proof of origin.
And now that matters more than ever.
Now it's everything. In a world where synthetic media is indistinguishable from human output and the marginal cost is zero, that lack of persistence and proof of origin fundamentally breaks the architecture of trust.
So the whole system was basically built on an assumption of human scarcity and inherent authenticity.
Right.
And both of those assumptions are now obsolete. So if trust is broken at that foundational layer, what are the engineering solutions being deployed right now to fix it?
No, we're seeing a major shift from reactive moderation to proactive engineering. The new architecture really needs two things: cryptographic proof and agent-aware economics.
Cryptographic proof of origin. That sounds complex.
It is, but it's vital. It's about using digital signatures to confirm that a piece of content was created by a real person at a real time and place. It's about creating an immutable lineage or an audit trail showing how that content has evolved.
How is that even being achieved? How do you prove authenticity at the moment of creation?
One example highlighted in the sources is infrastructure being built using something called trusted execution environments, or TEEs, inside our devices.
TEEs.
Yeah, TEEs are basically secure, isolated areas in a computer's main processor. By integrating cryptographic signing within that TEE, a photo or a video can be cryptographically proven to have been captured by a real camera on a real device, not generated synthetically.
So it flips the burden of proof. If it doesn't have the signature, you assume it's fake.
You assume it's synthetic or untrustworthy, yes.
Mhm.
And that leads to the second piece, agent-aware economics.
Right. Because if the cost of synthetic content is near zero, you have to introduce some kind of cost structure to enforce value.
Precisely. We need machine-readable pricing and permissions. We just can't have the status quo where LLMs scrape terabytes of data and pay nothing for it. The sources mention companies like Cloudflare introducing concepts similar to an HTTP 402 status code or papercrawl.
So websites could effectively charge bots and LLMs for access to their content.
Yes, it moves the web from a free-for-all to an economically enforceable, consent-based system. It turns the whole scrape now, pay never model on its head.
It's a foundational shift. If a content platform can charge an AI agent using programmable real-time micropayments embedded at the protocol level, you suddenly reintroduce economic scarcity.
And you make high-quality, human-led content valuable again. It creates a whole new content economy. It's, as one source termed it, creative destruction. It forces a higher standard for the small amount of content that actually gets indexed and paid for.
Okay, that's the big strategic long-term picture. But if we are content creators trying to thrive right now, we have to understand the immediate mandates for the biggest gatekeeper of all. How is Google reacting to this flood of synthetic content?
And that brings us squarely to the new quality baseline, Google's actual stance on AI.
Okay, let's get right to it and address the biggest misconception out of the gate. A lot of people mistakenly believe that Google is using some kind of AI detection tool to penalize content just because it was written by an LLM. Is that the current reality?
No, it is not. And that is the critical nuance that anyone in this space has to understand. Google has explicitly stated it does not penalize content simply because it is AI generated.
So what's the penalty for then?
The penalty is reserved for low quality, relevance, and intent. The goal is prioritizing original, helpful content created for people. And notice the phrasing there.
Right, it's not written by people anymore. It's created for people.
That was a very deliberate change.
So the tool is irrelevant. The output is everything.
Yeah.
The sin is the scaled content abuse, not using the tool itself to draft.
Exactly right. Unchecked, low-quality, generic AI content generates spam signals, it creates duplicate content issues, and it triggers penalties because it fails the helpful test. And Google has gotten exceptionally aggressive on this front with the 2024 and 2025 updates.
Tell us about those.
Well, the March 2025 core update and spam updates crack down hard on what they call scaled content abuse. That is, mass-producing low-value content with the sole intent of gaming search rankings.
What does that look like in practice for a typical website? What's an example of scaled content abuse?
It looks like hundreds of pages being created almost instantly, often covering the exact same topic with just slightly different keywords. Think of a financial site that publishes 50 nearly identical articles on how to open a savings account, but targets 50 different tiny geographical areas.
Or a product site that just copies the same description for 1,000 items and just changes the product name.
Exactly, adding zero unique value. These repetitive, thin patterns are now very easily identified by Google systems.
And we have data that shows just how targeted those updates were.
We do. There was one analysis of websites that were hit by manual actions in March 2024. It found that 100% of those domains had some AI-generated posts.
100%.
But more strikingly, 50% of the penalized sites had between 90% and 100% AI-generated posts. Google is not only better at picking up on this repetitive, scaled pattern, but the consequence of publishing low-quality content is far, far greater than it was before.
And this is where the penalty mechanism has fundamentally changed, right? It's no longer just a page-level problem.
That is the shift that every strategist needs to pay very close attention to. The sources stress that low-quality, repetitive, or unhelpful articles can now lower the ranking of the entire domain.
The whole burrow.
The entire domain, not just the individual page. So if you have, say, a blog section that's filled with AI slop, it can now actively pull down the authority of your core high-value product pages or your documentation pages. Google sees the domain's quality as holistic.
So this new reality makes cleaning up and pruning low-quality content a mandatory QA step. You can't just let it sit there anymore.
It's mandatory.
So if the rule is anti-generic, we need to create content that is impossible to generate at scale by a low-effort LLM. And that brings us to the two core requirements Google has always championed, which are now more important than ever: EET and information gain.
Right. EAP experience, expertise, authoritativeness, and trustworthiness is the foundation of credibility. And while an AI can draft text, it absolutely cannot replicate lived experience or deep subject matter expertise.
So human oversight is mandatory. You need a verifiable author who has genuinely used the product or worked in the industry for years.
It's the only way to meet those credibility standards. EEAT is the necessary trust signal, but information gain is the true differentiator against the synthetic flood.
Okay, let's talk about that. If generative models are experts at summarizing the existing consensus on a topic, how do we guarantee our page provides information gain?
Information gain means providing unique and valuable content that goes beyond what is already available in other search results for a given topic. It's that simple. If an AI can perfectly summarize the top 10 results for a query in an answer overview,
Then you need to provide something new, something that wasn't in those top 10 results. You have to build an information moat around your content.
that's the perfect analogy. And how do content teams build that moat, especially if they don't have access to massive, bespoke data sets?
Right.
The sources outline 4 key strategies. The first, and the most powerful, is to build that moat with original research or proprietary data.
So create the information yourself.
Exactly. This is the ultimate form of information gain because, by definition, information you create, like a survey of your user base, a new benchmark report, proprietary financial data, it can't be found anywhere else. This becomes the unique foundation for an authoritative answer.
That's high effort, but very high reward.
Sure.
What about strategies for creators who need wins without, undertaking a massive proprietary study?
The second strategy is to add first-hand accounts, anecdotes, and expert interviews. This is that personal, qualitative layer that AI struggles to fake convincingly.
The war stories.
The war stories, exactly. When you interview a genuine subject matter expert who can provide a nuanced if-then scenario based on years of practice, you've added information gain. It's the behind-the-scenes insights, the unique challenges, the personal analysis that separates your work from a generic summary.
And the third strategy focuses on audience segmentation, which often feels counterintuitive to traditional SEO, which was always about aiming for the broadest possible audience.
It is counterintuitive, but it's highly effective in the age of AI. The third strategy is to target and write for a very specific cohort, instead of writing the ultimate guide to remote work for everyone.
You niche down.
You niche way down. You write remote work policies for small architectural firms operating in multiple time zones. By narrowing the audience, you force the content to become more specific, more relevant, and ultimately more useful, thereby creating information gain that a generic, broad article just cannot replicate.
And we have data supporting this narrow focus too, right?
We do. Studies cited in the materials show that segmenting content by industry or specific use case increased top 10 Google rankings by over 43% on average for those targeted queries. When you narrow the focus by industry, company size, experience level, the content becomes highly authoritative for that specific segment.
So what's the fourth strategy? What's a quicker win opportunity for folks with large existing content inventories?
The fourth strategy is simply updating your older, important content. Don't let your valuable material stagnate. Regularly refreshing and adding new insights, data from the last quarter, or updated regulations to older work provides a significant near-term boost.
Because it signals explicit freshness.
Exactly. It signals freshness and improved value to Google's systems, and it moves it away from that ghost content mausoleum status we talked about.
This entire transition from optimizing for search engine ranking to optimizing for generative AI summaries is forcing us to rethink our entire optimization vocabulary. We have to master the new acronyms.
We absolutely do, because they represent distinct targets and distinct metrics. If you ignore the differences, you're going to confuse your strategy. And the source material provides a great framework breaking down 4 key concepts.
Okay, let's start with the familiar one, but acknowledge how it's changing. SEO.
Right. SEO, search engine optimization, remains the necessary foundation. It optimizes for rankings, crawlability, links, organic sessions. The core algorithm is still PageRank-based, valuing links and keyword density.
And traditional SEO targets clicks.
Exactly. Impressions lead to clicks, which lead to traffic. The tactics are familiar: XML sitemaps, core web vitals, all that stuff.
Okay, now, how does AEO, answer engine optimization, differ from that?
AEO is much more surgical. AEO optimizes specifically for LLM-based answer engines. Think ChatGPT, Gemini, or Google's AI overviews. The goal is to structure your content so these engines can extract a single, concise, verifiable answer.
And the crucial part?
And cite you as the source.
So AEO is about being the verifiable source for one specific fact. A sniper shot.
A perfect way to put it. The KPI is citation rate and direct source clicks from that generative answer box. Tactics here are things like structured data or schema, very short targeted snippets, often 40 to 60 words, and highly specific FAQ blocks.
Okay, that brings us to GEO, generative engine optimization, which is the broader strategy we're really focused on today. How does GEO build upon AEO?
If AEO is the sniper shot, GEO is the whole battlefield. GEO is the comprehensive strategy to earn inclusion in the synthesized summaries, not just for one fact, but as a recognized authority on an entire topic. It focuses less on a single citation and more on establishing your brand as a foundational, reliable source for the whole topic cluster.
So AEO gets you the single citation. GEO gets you the authority that ensures you're included in the overall synthesized summary time and time again.
Exactly. GEO relies on things like topic clusters, authoritative explainers, entity recognition, and what's called multi-source triangulation.
Which means?
It means having your authority confirmed by other sources that the AI also respects. The KPI here is inclusion rate in generative answers and overall brand mentions, which translates into broad authority.
And finally, there's AIO, or AI optimization, which sounds like the operational layer of all this.
It is. AIO is the strategy for your own internal efficiency. It's the operational use of AI across your own content lifecycle planning, drafting, QA, metadata generation to optimize your workflow for both human readers and machine systems.
So the KPIs there are internal metrics.
Right. Time to publish, content consistency scores, how fast you can iterate on successful content formats. It's about working smarter.
If we look at the fundamental differences between traditional SEO and this new world of GEO, the strategy is almost inverted, isn't it? Especially when you look at content structure.
It's a complete shift in runtime philosophy. Traditional SEO targets full web pages. It often aims for these long, discursive reads, 1,500 words or more optimized for a human reading and scrolling.
But GEO demands surgical precision.
It really does. It uses definitive answers that are placed immediately in the first 50 words of the content. It requires token-efficient formatting. Generative engines are optimized for parsing concise answers, not for reading long narratives.
Which means the technical focus has to shift dramatically. Traditional SEO worried about meta tags and site speed.
Now, GEO demands machine-readable endpoints. The underlying algorithm is shifting away from PageRank, which values external links, to language models that evaluate entity coverage, factual consistency, and cross-source agreement.
So you need things like provenance metadata, clear JSON schema, maybe even API exposure of your core data.
All of it. You have to ensure that the data is served up to the machines in the cleanest, most unambiguous format possible.
This new reality is fundamentally distorting the metrics that we all use to rely on for success. We can't just trust raw traffic numbers anymore, can we?
Not at all. The distortion is profound. The data shows that AI overviews now appear for nearly 10% of high-volume keywords, and that number is escalating very rapidly.
And what's that doing to clicks?
Well, here's the crazy part. While search impressions, the raw count of how many times your content appeared, have actually risen by almost 50% year over year, click-through rates, or CTR, have dropped by nearly 30%.
Wow, that's a massive disconnect. So you have impression inflation masking a huge performance drop.
You've nailed it. Users are getting the answer directly from the AI overview without ever needing to click through to your website. Zero-click is the new default user journey, and if you are only measuring organic traffic, you are completely misdiagnosing the health of your search strategy.
So we have to evolve our metrics immediately. We have to start measuring success by citation rate and in-answer presence, not just by traffic volume.
That's the strategic shift in a nutshell. Traditional SEO targeted the click to monetize traffic. GEO targets the citation and the inclusion to build authority. If your brand is consistently cited by generative AI, you become an entrenched, reliable entity, which is a massive long-term asset, even if it doesn't immediately translate to a click on any given day.
Okay, so we've established that relying solely on AI to just churn out content at scale is a recipe for model collapse, penalties, and basically becoming ghost content.
Right.
So what's the winning formula? It has to be a hybrid workflow, right? Something that blends machine efficiency with human insight.
The sources strongly, and I mean strongly, advocate for what they call the 70-30 rule for content creation.
The 70-30 rule.
Yeah. AI works best as a powerful partner. It can handle the bulk of the work, the foundation, the outlines, the first drafts, the bulk data aggregation. That's the 70%. AI saves you time, but it doesn't save your reputation.
But the human factor is responsible for that critical final 30%.
Yeah.
Why is that final stage absolutely non-negotiable?
Because that 30% is the part that connects, that converts, and that stands out. It requires human expertise to add nuance, personal experiences, originality, and critically, to ensure factual accuracy and align everything with the brand's unique point of view.
So the things AI can't do.
The most important functions that AI cannot manage, right? It can't set long-term SEO direction, it can't understand deeply complex buyer psychology, and it absolutely cannot replicate lived, authoritative experience.
And we have empirical data backing this approach up. This isn't just a theory.
No, it's the standard practice for high-performing teams. According to one study, over 86% of marketers report that they always edit and refine AI-generated content. They use AI for speed, but they reserve the final critical steps for human experts.
Adding perspective, ensuring accuracy, integrating unique findings.
Applying professional judgment, all of it.
So if we get lazy, if we over-rely on AI to fill that 30% gap, what are the specific risks we run into beyond just getting a low engagement score?
Well, beyond the domain-level penalty we already discussed, there are 3 immediate operational risks. First is the risk of factual errors or hallucinations, where the AI simply fabricates statistics or quotes which instantly erodes your EEAT.
Right.
Second is the loss of brand voice. The content just sounds robotic, it blends into the crowd, and it fails to establish any personality or connection. And third is the risk of over-optimization, where an AI, when prompted incorrectly, just stuffs keywords and generates these clunky, unnatural sentences that Google's spam filters are now specifically trained to flag.
It sounds like the moment you lose that human touch, you risk becoming just another source of generic thin content, and you end up contributing to the very problem you're trying to solve.
Precisely. That's why the content that rises to the top must be built around genuine expertise, verified experience, and supported by proprietary data. As one expert in the sources put it, AI can handle the technical formatting and the grunt work, but humans must manage the strategy, the creative direction, and the high-impact initiatives.
This strategic hybrid approach leads us naturally to the crucial element of consumer trust. Because we can optimize for machines all we want, but if the human audience detects that artificiality, we're sunk. How do consumers actually react when they know content was created by AI versus a human?
This is where the empirical data provides a very sharp warning, and it's essential for anyone thinking about marketing transparency. We have research comparing consumer attitudes toward AI-generated images versus human-made images, and it was tested across different disclosure conditions.
Okay, let's start with the black box condition. So when consumers are completely unaware of the source.
In that condition, which the researchers termed Study 1, when the image source was not disclosed, consumer attitudes toward AI-generated images versus human-made images were generally comparable.
No real difference.
No significant difference was found in metrics like trust, preference, or purchase intention. So, absent disclosure, consumers just evaluate the content based on its output quality alone. And AI-generated content can achieve parity.
So if they can't tell the difference, they don't care. But what happens when the source is explicitly disclosed?
That's Study 2, and the results are dramatic and, frankly, alarming for transparent marketers. When the image source was explicitly disclosed in advance, consumers' evaluations of AI-generated content were significantly lower than human-made content.
Across the board.
Across all metrics, trust, attitude, preference, and purchase intention.
That's a huge finding. The moment you tell the audience that the image or the content was created artificially, you actively damage trust and purchase intent. Why does that disclosure act as such a powerful negative moderator?
Well, this negative effect is linked to the activation of 2 cognitive responses: persuasion knowledge and algorithm aversion.
Okay, what are those?
Persuasion knowledge means that once consumers know a tool, in this case AI, was used to generate the message, they become immediately skeptical. They view the message as manipulative or lacking authenticity. And algorithm aversion is just the general distrust of machine decision-making. Consumers assume the AI is either factually flawed or lacks the moral judgment of a human creator.
So it sounds like the consumer interprets the disclosure as, the brand took a shortcut and might be lying to me.
Precisely. It immediately signals diminished effort and a potentially compromised result. This presents a massive challenge for brands that are operating under transparency rules. However, Study 3 explored mitigation strategies.
How so?
It examined how different usage motivations influence consumer response, even under full disclosure.
So why you used AI matters. What motivations did they test, and which ones worked to mitigate that trust damage?
They tested three primary motivations for using AI in commercial advertising: privacy protection, visual appeal, and cost efficiency. And crucially, disclosing that AI was used for privacy protection resulted in evaluations that were comparable to human-made images.
Interesting.
This motive attenuated the negative reaction because privacy protection is perceived as a moral benefit to the user, not a benefit to the brand's bottom line.
That makes perfect sense. The consumer sees that as an ethical choice by the brand.
It creates a positive framing effect. Disclosing that AI was used for visual appeal also resulted in non-significant differences. Consumers didn't really penalize the content.
That's
However,
a but coming.
a big one. When the motivation was disclosed as cost efficiency, it led to the most significant declines in consumer trust and purchase intention.
So that's the core takeaway here.
Yeah.
If you use AI and you have to disclose it, you need to frame it as a protection, a service, or an aesthetic benefit to the user. Never ever frame it as a shortcut to cut costs.
The empirical data is definitive on this. Consumers punish brands that use AI primarily to save money. They link it directly to diminished authenticity and effort. The human heartbeat behind a brand, its perceived integrity, remains its most powerful competitive advantage, especially when the internet is flooded with ghost content.
Okay, we've established the strategic necessity of the hybrid approach and the fundamental difference between SEO and GEO. Now let's get tactical. If someone listening is ready to start optimizing their content for generative engines right now, what controllable experiments should they be running in the next 90 days?
Right. We need a model that's focused on producing decision quality data. So you want to adopt a controlled, reversible experiment model. And the core rule here is vital. Never test multiple changes simultaneously. You have to be able to isolate the driver of the result.
Walk us through the rhythm of this 90-day model. What's the timeline look like?
The rhythm is simple and structured. Weeks 1 and 2 are for baseline logging. You document your current AI visibility, your organic metrics, and you test the LLM's answer accuracy for your key topics.
So a before picture.
Exactly. Then, once 3 through 6 are the execution window. This is where you implement a single, isolated change. And weeks 7 through 12 are dedicated entirely to measurement and validation. If the tactic works, you scale it. If it doesn't move the needle, you stop investing resources there immediately.
Okay, let's dive into experiment number 1. Building an LLM-ready topic cluster. Why is structural consistency so critical for these generative systems?
Because generative systems don't read like humans, they chunk content. They are looking for clean entities, clear, direct answers, and a predictable structure. They are looking for efficiency. If your content cluster is messy, disorganized, or inconsistent, the AI cannot confidently cite you or include you in a synthesized answer without risking a hallucination.
So how does one execute this experiment? What are the steps?
First, you pick a high-value topic cluster. You can use your internal site search, your Search Console queries, and even customer support transcripts to find the natural language questions your audience is already asking. These are the queries they are going to use in ChatGPT or Gemini.
And then you restructure the content around those questions.
You reorganize the entire content cluster with clear, consistent headings that directly answer those user questions. For example, you use H2s like, how do I do X? Or what is the cost of Y? And you ensure the answer is delivered immediately underneath that heading. No fluff.
Do we have an example of the impact this kind of structural cleanup can have?
Yes. The sources detail a great case involving a dental practice that rebuilt a topic cluster around common questions about teeth whitening options.
Okay.
By structuring the answers clearly, using FAQ schema, and standardizing the language across the entire cluster, they saw dramatic results. Within 75 days, they appeared in AI overviews for 9 out of 13 of their target queries.
Well, up from what?
Up from just 2. So the brand's visibility in AI-generated answers increased dramatically, even while their traditional organic traffic remains steady. It's a compelling win-win because that structural clarity helps both humans and machines.
That's fantastic. Okay, what is experiment number 2, the one focused on brand identity?
Experiment 2 is running a brand entity and sentiment sprint. You have to remember, AI aggregates brand information from everywhere online, and if your identity is inconsistent across those sources, the AI stitches together a Frankenstein description of your company.
So you have to ensure the right information is presented consistently and clearly everywhere the AI might look.
You do, and the first step is auditing what the AI already thinks about you.
The crucial before snapshot again.
Absolutely. You query multiple LLMs, ChatGPT, Gemini, Perplexity with questions like, who is brand name? What are some alternatives to brand? And what does brand specialize in? And you log everything. The accuracy of the description, the sentiment, the specific external sources it references, and any stale or misleading details.
And then the execution phase is cleaning up our entity signals everywhere. What are the biggest technical wins you can get here?
The most immediate wins are on-site. You update your home and about pages with clear, unambiguous entity signals. What you do, who you serve, and your key differentiators, all in clear, concise language. Then, crucially, you implement the correct structured data specifically, organization, and local business schema.
Okay, for the less technical listener, what does implementing organization schema actually do for a generative engine?
Schema gives AI-modeled, unambiguous, machine-readable data. Instead of forcing the AI to read a paragraph and try to infer your company name, your address, your industry, the schema is a clean data object that explicitly states, this entity is a company named X, operating in industry Y located at Z, and our primary identifier is this.
So it removes all the guesswork.
It removes all the guesswork, and this consistency across all your major touchpoints prevents the models from stitching together scattered and possibly incorrect information that they found somewhere else on the web.
Okay, finally, experiment number 3. This one focuses on the actual content delivery testing summary formats for machine readability.
This targets the finding that LLMs lean hard on the first 150 words of your content. If that opening is unclear, fluffy, or narrative-like a traditional long SEO introduction, the AI may skip the page or fundamentally misinterpret the core message.
Which is fatal for GEO.
Absolutely fatal. So we need to test which formats increase AI visibility and, just as importantly, improve paraphrasing accuracy.
What are the 3 formats we should be testing in that execution window?
First, you test short bullet summaries. These work exceptionally well for definitions, pricing breakdowns, processes, comparisons, a tight, concise list of key facts that the AI can instantly parse and cite. Second, you test tight paragraph summaries, a 2 to 3 simple sentence summary, absolutely clear, focusing only on the core answer with zero fluff.
And the third format is the control, the traditional approach.
Right. The narrative intro. This is that old school SEO approach, the 2 to 3 paragraph story about the history of the problem before you actually get to the answer. The experiment involves testing whether removing or replacing that narrative intro with one of the tighter summaries increases your AI overview inclusion and citation rate.
And how do we measure success for this test, beyond just a quick appearance in the AI overview? What's the key metric?
You have to track paraphrasing accuracy. You check the LLM output and you ask, did the AI correctly use my summary, or did it mangle it, introduce errors, or pull facts from a secondary source? And you also track human engagement metrics like scroll depth and conversion rates, because clarity and speed benefit human users just as much as they benefit machines.
Okay, now let's transition into the technical deep dive. This is for the strategists and the developers listening. This is where we get into the operational nuts and bolts of machine readability, moving beyond just the content layer.
Right. This deep dive focuses on ensuring your content is optimally chunked, reliably fresh, and rich in machine-traversable entities.
Let's start with content chunking. What does this mean in practice, and why is the token size specified in the sources so critical?
Content chunking means breaking your long documents, like technical documentation or detailed guides, into small, semantically intact blocks. The sources suggest targeting blocks of approximately 800 tokens with a 50-token overlap between chunks.
Why 800 tokens specifically?
The 800 token target aligns with the optimal context window sizes and retrieval capacities of many current LLMs. If the chunk is too large, the model can lose focus. If it's too small, it loses necessary context.
And what about that 50-token overlap? What function does that serve?
The overlap is vital for maintaining semantic integrity across the breaks. Imagine you're reading a very dense book, and at every chapter break, you skip the last 2 sentences of the previous chapter and the first 2 sentences of the next. You'd lose the connecting thread. The 50-token overlap ensures that when an LLM retrieves a specific chunk, it still has the immediate context from the preceding block. This means the model can cite clean, complete answers without missing the transition point.
This suggests that developers can't just rely on paragraph breaks. They need integrated scripts to handle this chunking process.
Absolutely. Developers can integrate scripts into their build process to write these chunks and manage the overlapping text alongside the main HTML pages. The key test you should ask yourself is, Could a developer copy only this 800 token chunk into an LLM and still solve their problem? Chunks that pass that test generate significantly more citations than monolithic, unchunked pages.
Okay, the next technical item is content freshness. In a world of infinite AI content, ensuring your data is up to date seems paramount to gaining authority. Stale facts lead to model hallucinations.
And this needs to move from a manual content effort to an automated engineering process. We need continuous update cycles. Developers should treat every code merge to the main production branch as a freshness signal. This should trigger an automated pipeline to rebuild and re-embed the documentation or the core datasets.
And how do we communicate that freshness signal to the machines?
You have to expose explicit freshness signals in the markup and the sitemap. Specifically, the date-modified signal is crucial. If an LLM sees content that hasn't been modified in 3 years, it will likely prioritize a newer, even if slightly less authoritative source. By programmatically updating date-modified upon every code or content change, you are ensuring that AI models always reference your latest documentation, maintaining your accuracy and your authority.
The third technical focus is on entity extraction and building a knowledge graph. This is moving beyond just keywords and into relationships between concepts.
Correct. LLMs primarily process entities and the relationships between them, not just static keywords. Entity extraction involves programmatically pulling every API surface, every core concept, and every unique acronym from your documentation. You then use this to build a structured internal knowledge graph, a sort of internal Wikipedia that the AI can traverse when it's answering complex questions.
And the goal here is to make your documentation the single authoritative source for that domain, regardless of how the user phrases their query.
Yes. The goal is to generate JSON LD that defines these entities and their relationships, keeping the knowledge graph synchronized with the actual code or product features. When an LLM encounters one of your documented entities, it immediately recognizes the concept and its context within your domain, which significantly increases the likelihood of an accurate citation.
And the final piece of the technical puzzle is optimizing for contextual queries. This means knowing how users actually ask questions, which often don't align with formal documentation titles.
This requires mining real user language. You need to analyze the data from GitHub issues, support tickets, site search logs, and even forum discussions to anticipate the natural language variants that generative engines encounter. This ensures your content matches how users ask for help, not just how your internal documentation titles dictate.
So instead of just optimizing for a formal heading like troubleshooting fetch API, you're optimizing for the 5 different conversational ways a user might phrase the same problem.
Exactly. For example, if a developer is struggling with a problem, they might type into an LLM, "Why is fetch undefined?" or "Fetch is not a function," or simply "uncaught type error.fetch." Your documentation needs to cover all 5 of those phrasings. Each solution should follow a clear problem-solution example structure, and critically should specifically state the error message verbatim.
So it can match the exact string.
Right. This allows models to match exact strings, increasing your conversational coverage. When that coverage exceeds a certain threshold, models like ChatGPT or Gemini may actually start recommending your content proactively to users.
This entire framework, from the strategic 70-30 split to these very tactical, machine-readable experiments, it shows that the future of content visibility really relies on a highly structured, two-pronged approach. We can't just chase clicks anymore.
Absolutely not. The dead internet theory isn't about the internet dying, it's about it fundamentally changing its composition. The dual requirement of SEO and GEO is now non-negotiable. Traditional SEO still matters for generating clicks and traffic, but the future of authority and high-level brand visibility is earned through GEO, through being machine-readable, consistent, and authoritative.
And the non-negotiable need remains the human input, the EEAT, the information gain, the authenticity that actually stands out from all the synthetic noise. The brands that win are the ones that leverage AI for operational efficiency, but reserve the strategy, the trust, and the unique experience for their human experts.
Designing content for machine clarity, for consistency, and for authority in these technical formats is paramount. But we must never forget that that layer of human expertise and authenticity, it is the ultimate finite differentiator in an infinite digital world.
So in closing, we've explored this new reality of the internet, a place where bots now outnumber humans, and where generic content is actively penalized. This shift forces us to look beyond the algorithm And back to the audience.
It does, because in an internet that's increasingly dominated by algorithms and bots talking to other bots, the channels that require genuine, focused human action and attention, like curated email newsletters, podcasts like this one, or small, vetted online communities, are becoming the most valuable marketing real estate.
Because they're spaces that the zero-cost AI flood cannot easily infiltrate.
Exactly. If the algorithms are getting better at spotting the synthetic noise, the real human audience is retreating to quieter, more focused channels where trust is inherently higher.
And that raises a fundamental strategic question for everyone listening, regardless of your industry.
Where are you focusing your efforts to connect with the real people who are hiding from the algorithms? Think about those smaller, private digital spaces, the communities people actively choose to join, where automated noise and ghost content can't easily follow. That's where the human audience is retreating, and that's where true engagement and lasting authority will ultimately be found.